So where did you get the idea for the Avid?
Well, I loved photography, and I always have loved photography. From age of 6, I had a Brownie camera and then the Instamatic camera, and I remember that moment when I got a Nikon FTN. It was like graduating college, and I was 15 or something, it was just a great thing. And then when video cameras got small enough that you could actually buy them and carry them around, something that would be enormous today, but for $2,000, the thing that would go on the side and the separate camera, I bought one of these things, and I started shooting video. And then I realized, you need to edit this stuff. And the question then was, how do you edit? We always had family vacations at my parents' place in Palm Springs. They were retired and lived in Palm Springs. The whole family came there, and I came with my video camera. Started shooting videos of my nieces and nephews. And one time I decided that I would make this video called Take the Money and Run. And we scripted it out and made parts for all the kids, and I directed it and shot it, and it was a big production with the whole family. And then I went into post-production in front of the fake fireplace in my parents' Palm Springs house, and I sat there with the camera tape deck connected to their home tape deck, meaning they could not watch any television during this whole time. And it took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And of course, I could not punch in at the right places, and I couldn't get it all to be right.
Clean edits.
But, oh no, forget that.
Yeah.
And just being anywhere in the ballpark was a good thing, and you move on.
Yeah. Pure frustration.
Absolutely. So I made this video called Take the Money and Run. And I got to tell you, we just watched it just now, and it still brings joy to my heart to see that. And it did to our whole family. And it was that experience that it was so hard to edit that made me feel like something's got to be better than what I have.
And how did you proceed from there? How did you get from that idea to, let's say, prototype?
Okay, well, there was a long distance between Take the Money and Run and the Avid. So I was doing these family videos, and that was, you know, wonderful but incredibly tough to do. And then at the company I was working at, Apollo Computer, they had a little editing system. So I thought, now this is going to be good. So I went and started using their little editing system, Panasonic knob editor, and it was more accurate, but it was still the same pain of linear editing.
Yes.
It was starting to come to me what this linear editing thing meant. What it really meant was, you change your mind, you lose it.
Right.
I mean, it was really painful. Basically, you had to just keep building and building, and if you ever wanted to go back, forget it. So I was just discovering this. I had never heard about it, read about it. I just sort of like discovered the pain myself for the very first time. And so then I kept looking for ways to solve this pain because I liked editing and I needed some sort of good editing fix.
Right.
And so I was a product manager at Apollo Computer. We made this. I was the product manager for a 3D graphics workstation, like Silicon Graphics, compete with Silicon Graphics. And I convinced my boss that we needed a video for this thing, not a brochure. And so, and the whole idea was to use one of those computerized editors that would do just editing the way I wanted it to be if I had enough money to rent one. So he said, fine, I got the budget. I called up this place, Video One in Boston. I said, you have a computerized editor? They said, sure do. And I said, how much is it? And he said, $300 an hour. And I was like, oh, God, but I had the budget. So I said, okay, and I shot my stuff on 3/4-inch tape with time code. I thought that was very fancy. Yep. And I came in to Video One with my stack of tapes, and they said, where's your script? And I said, I don't have a script. I'm just going to work it out on your computerized editing system. And they kind of tilted their head a little bit. And I said, I want you to show me how to run it. And they tilted their head a little more. But they said, oh, you know, I'm an engineer. I was young, and you know, they said, okay. So they sat me down at the machine, and when I saw the green monitor, I was a little worried. But I said, okay, show me how it works. And they said, okay, P is play, and they hit P, and it started playing. And they said, space bar is stop, that stopped. And they hit R is rewind, and it started backing up. And I said, what do you mean rewind? And they said, well, what do you mean rewind? And I said, is there a tape deck? And they said, well, of course there's a tape deck. and I said, wait a minute, this is a computerized editor, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, you're just controlling tape decks? And they said, well, yeah. And I said, so what good is it?
So you had a vision of the Avid before it was, you know.
I thought I could rent one. I thought if I had enough money, I could rent one. All right, so I went and I rented what I thought was an Avid.
Wow.
And I get there and it's controlling the tape decks. And I said, how is this better than my knob editor that I already have, the Panasonic? They said, you can't do frame accurate editing with that. And I said, you were right, but you know, so you can punch in exactly to the frame, and there's, yeah. And they said, and you can rebuild the edit list if you want. You know, if you want to take forever to do that.
Yeah.
And they said, when do you need this tape? And I said, tomorrow. And they said, call your boss. Remember, I was a young guy at that point. Call your boss, call it off, your history.
And they were going to charge you.
They were actually very nice. But I said, no. And they said, all right, then you have to go make a paper edit. We'll give you a burn-in on tape, and you go and make a paper edit, and you come back tomorrow, and we'll do it online. And that's what we did.
Boy, you're bringing back bad memories.
Yeah. And I got it done. Yeah. The video was an enormous hit.
Oh, was it?
Oh, yeah. The sales force loved it. I mean, here was this product. They just didn't understand 3D graphics, how many, you know, polygons per second and vectors per second. They never even heard of this stuff.
Made it crystal clear.
Yeah, they just popped it in for the customer. And so they loved it. And what happened then was every new product then had a video. And I was involved in making these videos. So I was doing more and more videos. And then we added Paintbox. And then we added animation. And we kept adding the budget for all this stuff, but we did not increase the budget for the post. So what would happen is that the post would be a one-day post with more and more complexity in the time frame. And so I would be in the editing suite trying to make little blips go around. We'd have a blip going this way for the network, and the shine come up, and then this and then that. And time was running out, and and by the time I'd done my 10th one of these, I got to a point where I said, I'm done. I am not going to come back into an online suite again. I didn't know what I was going to do. Right. I just said, I'm not coming back. So in 1984 is that video of the it was a DN580 workstation. In 1985, I got involved with the deal for Apollo with General Motors EDS, where they said they wanted to buy $600 million worth of workstations. Wow. And I was one of a few people that went to the bidding conference on this. And they said, among other things, that they wanted video in a window. They wanted to see full resolution video in a 1280 by 1024 screen. And everybody in the room, there were hundreds of companies in the room, they're sitting there like, huh? Wow. And, you know, they'd never heard of that.
Right.
And of course, I'd been thinking about video, and I came back from that, and I said to the management of Apollo, I said, we can win this deal. We can do this video thing. I wanted to do it. And so I convinced a little company that was making boards that did 640 by 480 computer with video integrated. Oh, right. Okay, they had always wanted to do a 1280 by 1024, but there was no customers for that. So I went to them and I said, we've got this huge potential deal. Will you do it? And they basically said yes. So they built a 3-board set for the PC bus that was what the Apollo had. Right. It took so much power, they had to, the Apollo engineers had to make a new box that had huge power supplies just to do it, and they actually called the project Giraffe because of how far out they were sticking their neck. But we won.
You got the contract.
We got the contract. And that company, which is called Parallax Graphics, I don't know if they're still around, they built that board and went on to sell it. And it did a video in a window. And it also had a feature called the ability to very fast move video from off-screen to on-screen. And I started to think, oh, if I can store the video off-screen, and if I can blit it, it's called bit block transfer, I can blit it on-screen fast enough, and then if I could be refilling that buffer fast enough from the disk, maybe I can get motion video for a lot of longer footage.
Right.
So Quantel, Harry was around for but 30 seconds of high quality video.
Right.
People did not have long form digital video at that time.
So you were looking for a way to create a way to capture longer pieces of motion video.
Well, I was looking for a way to playback motion video, and
so playback, not
playback.
capture.
Yeah, capture was a whole nother issue, so this project for on the Apollo gave me some of the seeds for it, and then I started making the most crude prototypes. One of the things I work with entrepreneurs, and I teach them, don't be, what's the right word? Don't be proud. Make demos that just get the point across with whatever you can do to get the point across.
Because refinement is all part of the process.
Exactly. Right. So I decided I'm going to take this board and I'm going to show editing. There was no way I could digitize footage. No way. That was a huge software project to do. Yeah. The board technically could do it. Yeah. Huge piece of software to make. And so I took 6 graphics. We had some computer graphics from Apollo. A baseball stadium, the orangutan, which is one of those pictures from computer graphics all the time, a dishwasher, a few other things. And I had a graphics guy put a line on each frame. Right? So I had 60 frames of the orangutan and 60 frames of dishwasher, baseball, and I asked my engineer, I said, put a line, all right, on the next frame, go 6 degrees. Next frame, 6 degrees, 6 degrees, 6 degrees, so that in 60 frames the line went around. It was just to show some motion, okay? So I basically ended up with 360 frames off screen, each with a line that would go a little further, and we made a little editing interface that let you, and you gave a demo where I said, let's say you're at a baseball game and it's baseball and the little line's going around, and I said, cut to a commercial, and it's dishwasher and the line goes around, and then to another commercial, orangutan, and the line's going around.
I'd like to have a copy of that. That sounds fun.
It might be on some of these tapes, yeah. So, but I mean, this was a demo of a machine that cost, in the end, millions and millions and millions of dollars to create. Wow. But we did it in a couple hours of software using what we had, which was the Parallax board. As I began to crystallize how I would make this, at the same time, Apollo Computer was having all kinds of problems, management problems, and it was really clear that things were not going well. And I was pretty low in the organization. So, because I was 31 years old or so, but I knew all the high-ups because I had done this deal, GM deal, And I went to him and said, here's this idea. And the president of the company said, we'll fund it. Wow. And he said, I'll give you space, give you some money, do it here, this would be great. And I said, okay.
Fantastic.
I said, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. I went to my boss. This guy's name is Mike Gallup, big, tall guy, deep voice. And and he said, Bill, how hard is it to get the money we need to make the workstations we need to compete with Sun? I said, well, pretty hard. He said, how likely is it, do you think you'll really get the money for doing this? And I said, oh, I don't know. He said, if you really want to do this, you get out of here right now.
Wow.
Go do it. And 2 weeks later, I quit.
Wow.
2 weeks after that, the president who gave me the funding or proposed the funding was fired.
Wow.
So
where did you get the funding? I mean, did you show a prototype to an investor or at the MIT startup conference?
So I made these little demos and I started showing people and getting people excited. And there was a lot of people pushing me to not to try to go so far. I would show them the video, you know, and you could tell it was going to be, I mean, we didn't even have video. We had these little things with lines going around.
Yeah.
But they were still pretty small on the screen.
Yeah.
And people said, why don't you use tape decks to give you the quality, and then you could, I was like, no. Digital video, digital audio, it's got to be digital, it's got to be fast. And we just kept sticking to our guns and making demos a little better, and then eventually figured out how to get that video in, just for a little bit of it, how to get the video to play back, how to get sound with the video. We didn't have sound for the longest time. And then I hired this guy, Jeff Bedell, who was my first engineer. He's still at Avid today. He started actually building the Avid system. And we started building a prototype. And we started showing it to customers. And so we built a first prototype that was very film-oriented, had film strips, and it was going to be all about cutting film, just film interface, film.
Virtually.
Right. Which, by the way, I wasn't a film guy, but I understood putting pictures out.
Right.
You know.
Timeline.
So, yeah, there was a timeline and there was a film view. Mm-hmm. And funny thing, that original Avid thing is very similar to iMovie today. The
newest version?
The new iMovie.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just totally film oriented. We showed that to some people and they were like, where's the play and record, you know, thing? You know, I want the play and record monitor. So we actually took two paths. We made two prototypes. One is a film visual, and we made a second one, which was a source record visual editing system. And we decided to rent a suite at the NAB show and invite people to see this. So I picked up one of those guidebooks to video post-production, and I opened the book, and basically if they had any fancy equipment, we invited them. So if they had a Quantel Harry, or if they had anything kind of, you know, beefy,
upscale.
We invited them to come to our suite at the NAB show.
86 or 87?
87. So I had a venture capitalist friend of mine, Bill Kaiser, who was interested. In February, he had the first demo, February 1988. So Bill looked at the system. He was excited, but puzzled, you know, never seen anything like this. And so early on, I made a decision, one, that we're going to go to NAB. So that set a stake in the ground. And then we decided we're going to take these two prototypes to NAB, and we're going to invite all these people. And we got a suite with 2 rooms. And I also decided I'm going to invite Bill, and I'm going to have him be there. If people like it, great. If they hate it, then he'll hear what they hated, and we'll figure out how to fix what they didn't like.
Great.
And I said, just
you didn't have the mindset of if they hate it, that's it. It's over.
oh, no way. No. We were too into it at that point. I mean, I could taste it. I wanted that machine.
Yeah.
I wanted the thing. You know, it's just I had to have it.
Yeah.
So we went to the NAB show. We shipped by Federal Express. Our machines were lost.
In shipping?
Yeah. They found them.
Oh, good.
In time. And we were sweating bullets, but just to show you how much money meant to us at that time, we were thrilled because now the shipping was free. And it was like $1,000 to send these big machines.
But because they lost it.
Because they lost it for a few hours or something.
Well,
it was
right.
So we get our machines, and we set it up in the suite. We had a real process. We called people at their hotels. Are they going to come? You know, we had 2 rooms. We pre-screened them in the one room. And we surveyed them before seeing it. We surveyed them after seeing it. We asked them what price points they were willing to play out, what features they wanted. We asked them graphically. We asked them with numbers. We asked them, you know, we had all these
measurements.
Yeah, with measurements. This was our moment to figure out whether we had something or not. And we asked, do you want black and white for 14,000, or do you want a medium system for 50,000, or all the bells and whistles for 85,000? They all said, look, we want 85,000. We'll spend 85,000, and we want the features. We want color. We want this.
Load it up.
You load it up, 85 grand. That's our price point. And so we came back, and Eric Peters was there. And my plan as an engineer was that we were going to do 15 frames per second, because if you look at it, the speed of the disk was here, right? To do 30 frames per second from that disk meant you would have to use it at like up to here, which in engineering you can't do. You just don't do that.
You need more headroom.
You need more headroom. So I said, we're going to go to 15 frames a second. We can do that. All right, and so that's what I said. We're going to, actually, we asked them, how's 15, how's 30? We did ask them this. And they all said, we have to have 30. They have to have 30. We have to have 30. In my mind, I said, you're getting 15. I didn't tell them that. I said, you're getting 15. So at that event, everybody loves the machines. They say they'll buy it. Bill Kaiser, sitting on the bed in the hotel room, he says, we're going to invest. So Greylock invested $500,000, which even then was small, but it was Bill's first full investment as a venture capitalist, and they invested $500,000 in August of 1988. That same month, we go to the SIGGRAPH show. Apollo Computer, our friends, said, can you bring some cool demos? And I said, we're not ready yet. We don't want to announce. They said, just bring some cool demos. And so my view was the Avid Media Composer should start by duplicating everything in the online suite. Because after all of that's known. So that's a reasonable thing to do. Let's duplicate everything in the first release. That's what I told the engineers I wanted to do. I was young and naive. I mean, I was absolutely convinced that was a piece of cake. So I hired an engineer to do DVE, digital video effects. Right. So we had this demo of DVE and video, real video. Yeah. I mean, by now we had plenty of real video. We had all kinds of real videos squeezing in multiple channels. He had things with like 32 channels of DVE. Wow. It wasn't high resolution, but it was mind blower. So we thought, what the heck? That's not our product. Why don't we show it? So we show it in the Apollo booth. Oh. All right. What happens? These two guys from Apple show up. And they're like, you have to be on the Mac.
Oh, nice.
And I said, no. And they said, no, you really need to be on the Mac. This needs to be on the Mac. And I was like, come on, we're on an Apollo workstation here. This is the beefy stuff. And they said, look, we'll send you a machine. You just test it. I'm like, I'm busy, And they said, we'll just send you a machine. Okay. So we come back from the SIGGRAPH show, and we can't get in the door to our building because there's a box of Apple machines sitting in the way of the door.
Nice.
So, being a hardware engineer, I'm like, I can't, we've got to open the box, And so I open the box and I call this guy, Michael Chow at Apple, and I say, we didn't even know what to do with these things. What do we do with it? And he said, okay, I'll hook you up with a software engineer who knows how to do this. So we get this guy, George Madewell, and we say, okay, George, we got to test how fast this thing is. So we had the issue of what was called the main memory bit blit speed, which was if you had something in memory over here, how fast could you blit it even to a small piece of the screen, and how many frames per second could we do that? All right. The Apollo, we had gotten up to 9 frames per second. I was like, that wasn't great, but at least you had motion. And we figured we could optimize it, and I was thinking we could get to 15. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So we get George to make this test on the Mac. And he does the test. And the answer is 45.
Wow.
I'm like, 45? Did you do the test right? Are you kidding? And he'd done the test right. Okay, so 45. So then the next key question, That's the blitting from main memory to screen. The next thing is you have to feed main memory from the disk.
Right.
All right. We were getting about 200 kilobytes per second off of the disk on the Apollo. We were thinking, okay, we're gonna have to write some new drivers, and it's not fast enough. The theoretical performance of the disks that were in these machines was 1,200 bytes per second.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Eric Peters, who was a chief technologist, then wrote a test on the Mac to test the performance through the file system
Mm-hmm.
to see what that number was, because that was another key number.
Sure.
So he calls me up and I said, what's the number? He said, it's 1,200. I said, no, that's the theoretical number, Eric. What's the actual number throughput that you tested? He said, it's 1,200.
Wow. Why were you able to accomplish this on the Mac versus?
Somebody from Apple, please tell me, because I've never seen anything perform at the full performance of an underlying system, but that did it.
Wow.
All right, they must have optimized for large transfers or something, but it ran at the full speed of the underlying disk. In fact, I've never seen the underlying stuff ever run at the speeds that they say it will, but it did.
Wow.
So now we had 1,200 on the speed, and we had 45 on the frame rate, and that meant we had to make a decision, and quickly, because we had NAB 1989 coming up, which was going to be our announcement. This was by now the fall of 1988. We had just taken our venture capital money.
Right.
We did some more testing, and I finally gathered the people, and I said, hey, when we have to make a decision today, and when we walk out this door, there is no turning back. We have to decide today that we're going to switch to the Mac, and everything on the Apollo is going to stop. They're all going to be sent back. You don't necessarily know that much about the Mac, but too bad. All right. It's the minute we walk out this door, it's all Apple.
Wow.
And we sat there, we had our beers. I said, you ready to do it? And they said, we're ready. And we said, okay, that's it. We walked out. We called Apple. We said, we're in. And we said, send as many Macs as you can. They gathered old junk from the engineering labs, because these things were really hard to get. And they were $5,000 each.
Yeah.
And they got us stuff that worked. Had no cases, and
It's amazing.
And we switched. And the funny thing is so much that we compete today with Apple, but so much of Apple is in our blood.
Yeah.
And from then on, it was, we built on the Mac, and it wasn't really until 8 years later that there was even any hint of other platforms.